Salutations viewers, my name is Game Dame and welcome back to another one of Game Dame Legends of Runeterra patch notes review. So today we have patch 2.9.0 and I'm sorry I'm late. I was on this. I know we have another one probably coming out tomorrow and I just wanted to review this since it's incredibly short, but also because I don't want to miss a single beat when it comes to the patch notes. So without further ado, let's take a look. So wow, holy schniza. So they have a lot of card updates. So I'm just going to read the first two paragraphs for you guys. Well, maybe I could read all of this for you guys. So the card updates, they've seen a lot of conversation in the community about topic of live design. Players are passionate about it and we're passionate about it as well. They believe that live design is strongly connected to one of their fundamental beliefs, which is that every player should be able to have access to all cards and all decks without spending money. I 100% agree. That fundamental aspect of Legends of Runeterra unlocks our team to be able to make card updates without punishing players for past card and deck acquisition choices. Ooh, I like that. Ultimately, their goal is to make Legends of Runeterra the most fun we can. When making live design decisions, we don't focus on any single aspect. They use complex data models and card usage, region usage, win rates, deck lists, performance versus specific decks, different formats, different ranks, they win rate disparity, performance over time, etc. They also consider a complex model of how decks feel relative to the meta, and they survey the community regularly to learn how players feel about cards, decks, archetypes, meta game health, game models, cosmetics, future. Apparently the list goes on and on, but I really like how they talked about that they want that every player should have access to all cards and all decks without spending money, because I hate it when I'm going in and trying to create a new deck that I could obtain them easily with like in-game currency and I don't feel the need to just like overspend. That's why I moved over to this instead of play Hearthstone a lot, because I just would play for free and I would just get so tired of people having these amazing decks that they would spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on, but like it just made it a lot more difficult for me to love and play the game because everyone kept buying instead of just playing too much to the point. I don't know. I'm just not it's a way for Riot to make money. I get why they did it, but like we should have access to all of them without spending the extra dough, especially for someone like me who lives paycheck to paycheck. So let me see what they say here. They try to focus their changes to be as targeted as possible to avoid collateral damage or unintended consequences to decks we don't want to affect. So they tried to let the community find new ways to evolve playstyles without live design card changes. So they said one of the amazing things about card game genre is the ability the community has to explore and discover new strategies that can be dramatically shifted within the meta without any card changes. And then there are times where it's clear the changes are necessary to ensure the experience is still fun and exciting. So they explain that Talia, I think it's Talia, and Malphite are both clear examples that need live design attention. It's an easy decision to make because so many our inputs into decision-making process clearly indicate that Talia, Malphite, and their primary deck are not meeting our standard. Irelia and Azir are not so obvious because there are different inputs that contradict each other. It takes information to make another decision. So that's kind of what they're explaining, is just how sometimes it's really obvious, most other times it's not. So first 3 weeks, Guardians of the Ancient, they've seen Irelia and Azir decks rise and fall in popularity. And they explain how they love the Irelia and Azir pattern as well as Blade Dance, but they've learned a ton of players love it too, and they want to keep the feel of the deck intact. So their recent information indicates the deck is just too powerful, so they're making two very targeted changes. But I'm curious as to how they've only touched upon this once, about without spending money, because I feel like that's just the biggest thing for players, especially new players or young players that don't necessarily have all the money in the world. Otherwise, they're playing this game 24/7, which isn't a bad thing because then it gets them to know everything about said game. So they're always learning and improving Runeterra. Sometimes they'll make mistakes, as everyone does, and they'll always do their best to listen to all of their players as much as they can and improve along the way. So we're in this journey together. So I really like this this little spiel right here that they gave to us. I'd like to see what they're going to be doing about this, that they believe live design is strongly connected to our fundamental beliefs, which is that every player should have access to all cards in all decks without spending money. Because this is the only thing that I think matters to a lot of players, in my personal perspective, as someone who can't always afford new cards because there's all these games, or there's rent, or there's, for me, cat bills, because my cat is very expensive with his vet bills. Love you, Mr. B, but geez. But let's move on to some of the actual champion updates that they have done. So for Talia, I keep going back and forth. Her base stats at level 1 were 2-4. Now they moved to 3-5. And then at level 2, they're from 3-5 to 4-6, which I think is a good change for her. And then for Malphite, so they changed the text from you've summoned 12 plus mana of landmarks to now it's only 10 plus mana of landmarks, which I love because I feel like 12 is an absurd amount of landmarks to have. So it says both Talia and Malphite have struggled to find a home in the meta, which I agree. And they like decks to play these buffs and add more into the champions to feel to drastically change the play of the game. So they changed Blossoming Blade. Cost went up from 4 to 5, and base stats went from 4 to 3. So it's kind of that. It's not a nerf, but it's not a buff. It's just they just made it more costly, and then they added an additional attack to it. So now it's a 5 mana 4/3. I don't think this is a bad change, especially for how much play this card did see. So Inspiring Marshal, the cost went from 5 to 6, and base stats went from 4 to 6 to 4 to 5. So when you summon another ally, give it +2/+0. I don't think this is a bad change, but they did explain that the Aurelia and Azir decks are too powerful, and I do like how this, because I do see this card in a lot of those decks, so they wanted to change Blossoming Blade and Inspiring Marshal to ensure the changes focus on this deck. In patch 2.9.0 brings a new champion, powers, and more Lab of Legends. So they have new starting champions added: Irelia, Zillion, Malphite, Lysandra, and Fizz. And you can get a Malphite card back from completing a run with each of them, which is cool. They have new support champions added. Sejuani, Leona, Yasuo, and Victor have been added to draftable champions during a run. More powers. 18 new powers have been added. 10 common, 5 rare, and 3 epic. Talia rocks now. Hopefully, Talia's deck has been updated. And they also made a few changes to Duo, Q, Shared Spoils. So more deck consistency and Q up. So with more deck consistency, players can now bring 0 to 2 decks with them rather than 0 to 3. And then for queue up, players will be given the chance to add their teammates as a friend if they're solo queuing. Ooh. So then they have some miscellaneous updates as announced in patch 2.7.0 with the release of patch 2.9.0. Cross Shard Friend Challenge will no longer be supported. And it seems that Cross Shard Friend Challenge was one of the main culprits of something that was outdated tech, as they were explaining. So they're taking resources that need to develop some of LOR's most exciting features. So they are taking out this said feature. So overtime has been adjusted, best of 3 matches, while in overtime players are now approximately 25 seconds to complete their turn. And then they have a decent amount of bugs, bug fixes that they always have, of course. But I don't mind this update. I think this right here is probably the bulk of the update in itself, them explaining where exactly they're at right now, their way of thinking, and how they want to approach said new things in the future. But like I said in the beginning of the video, I think this is probably the most important part of this entire update right here, is how they have access to all cards and decks without spending money, and that is just consistently playing. But I wonder if they could just make it just a smidge easier. Not that it's hard by any means, you just got to put a lot of time into it, which not all of us have, like me. I work full-time, and then I do all this YouTube stuff on the side, so here we go. But that is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I highly appreciate your time as always. So this was just a really small patch, just giving like an update as to like their way of thinking, like I've stated, and then making changes to the Irelia and Azir update, and then just making the Malphite and Talia decks just a bit stronger. But let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought of this patch notes for Legends of Runeterra. But that is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Highly appreciate your time as always. But please do not forget to subscribe and follow, not only to my YouTube, but to my Twitch. You guys know where my YouTube is at, but you can find my Twitch at twitch.tv/thegamedame. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.